Over, but I hope you've enjoyed today's program. Tomorrow morning, yeah, very good. Go ahead and clap because it was it was a great opportunity here. Some great discussion today, but let me tell you that Sunday is always the best part because it is really an opportunity to reflect on what was discussed today and kind of get some individual action plan for the short term, but more importantly, to get a sense of where we want to go. Gus, I know you want to say a couple words here.
I do. You can't shut me up once I get going. I'm sorry. There was one thing that Sean just mentioned to me as Claire was speaking. Claire was very modest when she was talking about the various organizations and people she designed for. How many of us have seen the kilted yoga folks? Claire designed for those guys too. Imagine. Right. So I wanted to ask if everyone here could join with me in thanking the folks in Detroit for their wonderful hospitality today, especially our masterful MC, John Cherry. And I also wanted to thank Rory, not just for coming and presenting so well, but for his support of this conference, which allowed us to have the video link up and to have the presence online, and to the guys behind the computers at the back there who really worked hard to do that. So to Rory and to the techie guys, thank you very much. And John, can I just finish with one little story? It kind of relates to what we were saying this morning. Since I last saw everyone at the conference in Toronto, I became an American citizen. Now, I did this for a variety of reasons, but as we look at our identity, I figured out last March that I'd spent 8,632 days living in the United States, but only 8,631 days living in Scotland. It was something of a trip. I began to think, well, what does this mean insofar as my identity and who I am? And that was one of the reasons. The other reason was because it was very frustrating to have a view and not a vote in the last election. I'll leave it there. But let me tell you about just a little bit about the experience of becoming an American. I'd asked the chairman of our board, who is a federal court judge, if he would be willing to do the swearing in, to administer the oath for us. There were 4 of us in the Scottish community going to become Americans together. And I went along and I had the civics test. I studied those 100 questions. I aced it. Right? And the man then said, well, congratulations, Mr. Noble. All that remains for you to do is to swear the oath. You will hear from us in a few weeks, and we'll set a date for you to come into the immigration center and swear the oath. And at this point, I said to him, I was wondering when the right time and the right way to bring this up is, but we have this thing called the Highland Games, and this judge is willing, member of our board, to administer the oath. Would you be willing to do the oath at the Highland Games? And the guy looked up at me and said, that's above my pay grade, but I'll call my supervisor. And she came bounding down the stairs and she said, the Highland Games, is that thing where you wear kilts and throw telephone poles around? I said, that's the very one. As it turns out, we couldn't do it there. And it's just as well, because it took forever, and at Highland Games you couldn't really take that much time out of the program. The other thing, it would have been wonderful to have that experience amongst our fellow Scots, amongst our own folk. That would have been wonderful, but it would have been a one-note thing. When I walked into the room, there was two areas at the immigration center for us to sit. There was the main area where those of us who are being naturalized would sit, and an area next to it where all our families and loved ones would sit. And at the back of the room, floor to ceiling windows with light streaming into the room, there was a play area for our kids. And on the floor of this play area was a huge rug. And on this rug was a map of the United States, and every state was a different color. And the light streaming in was this really vivid scene. And I looked, and there was a black kid, there was an Asian kid, there was a Hispanic kid, and there was my kid, who's a mixed race kid, all playing together peacefully. And I thought, what could be more symbolic for what's about to happen? When we walked in to the room, the lady who was administering the oath was a Muslim lady, and she said, there are 145 of you from 120 countries here today. And she said, could everybody from Albania please stand? Everybody from Australia, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, and so on. And I thought, it's either going to be Scotland or the United Kingdom, but I'm going to be towards the end if it's the United Kingdom. Well, there was a guy there from Yemen who got last place. But when they called United Kingdom, I stood up and I immediately burst into tears. It was the most powerful and visceral thing I'd ever felt, that this experience I was having had been going on for generations before me and will surely go on for generations after me. And I felt like I was this tiny little part of some much bigger thing. And it was really humbling and really moving. And quite why I wanted to tell the story, I'm not sure, but I know it has some bearing on what we've been discussing today. So thanks for listening.